for Oak Cliff to, where we are now, this is my wildest dream to be in this space. The organization started as an event. It was a back to school festival to get school supplies for my students that I would have the next school year. I think that we outdid ourselves in that first year with thousands of people showing up in that first year at the festival at Glendale Park. I remember my friend Nahom coming to me and saying, "Man, this is huge." He was like, you got to start a nonprofit.
Welcome to the Hidden City Podcast. I'm Grant.
And I'm Doug, and we're here to share some of the incredible stories and people from Oak Cliff that you might not know.
We're going to sit down with some of the visionaries, craftsmen, and business owners who have shaped Oak Cliff into what it is today.
Oak Cliff is on the south bank of the Trinity River, a few miles south of downtown Dallas. While technically it was part of Dallas, it was its own city for a long time, and it still has that independent spirit.
We'll dive into the history and the spirit of this place, exploring the different challenges and successes that defined it.
This is The Hidden City, a podcast about the people and the stories that make Oak Cliff extraordinary. Okay, well, welcome to this episode of the Hidden City Podcast. We're excited to have Taylor Toynes today with us, who is the CEO of For Oak Cliff, and neighbor and servant of Oak Cliff. Thanks for being on the show today, man.
My pleasure.
Yeah, we're excited for you to be here. Well, we kind of start this episode off usually like, how did you find yourself in Oak Cliff? I believe your family's been here multi-generations, and that's, how did you come to Oak Cliff, or how did your family
How did I come to Oak Cliff?
Yeah.
Well, my parents brought me here from the hospital.
I love it.
That's how I got to Oak Cliff.
You've been here.
Yeah, I'm a native.
Yeah.
Born and raised to this day, raising my children, enjoying life with my wife, and just a proud native Oak Cliffian.
I love it.
I'm glad to be, really from the soil.
Yeah, one of the reasons we were really excited to have you on this podcast was to hear, obviously, your story in Oak Cliff and your origin story here, but also to kind of jump into For Oak Cliff and how did that get started. And so we'd love to know some of the heart behind that and what brought you into focusing in back into your neighborhood.
I've always had a focus in the neighborhood and the community as a whole. I was raised in that way. My grandfather ran a convenience store in Glendale Shopping Center. So I was a fly on the wall for that whole experience my entire life. And it was one of those, it was a very cultured experience for me. My perspective and the things that I was able to see and experience were, in my mind, it was amazing. In Oak Cliff in the 90s, that was a special time. People who experienced it know what I mean. And I was young. I was a young guy too. I was born in 88, but I got to experience the 90s for sure. But what got me into the work that I'm currently doing in the service of For Oak Cliff, I always wanted to, do things to help my people, because I learned early on the history of what had taken place of black people in the United States of America. And then I also learned the history of who my people are before, being captured and brought here as enslaved people. And I was inspired growing up by, my family. I was inspired by icons within history that looked like me. And I wanted to be an attorney because I thought that was the way that I could go be a leader and provide change for the people in the neighborhood. And out of college, I read an article titled "The Cradle to Prison Pipeline," and I saw my zip code that I grew up in of 75216 on the top of the at the top of the list. It led the city of Dallas with the most people incarcerated at the time, not knowing though that it also led the state of Texas with the most people incarcerated. And I shifted immediately and wanted to go into education. And I immediately applied for Teach for America and could have got placed anywhere in the United States. And they placed me at W.W. Bushman Elementary School. And, you know, those fourth grade students, or my fourth grade students at that school, changed my life and gave me a different sense of purpose and sparked a movement that has changed Oak Cliff in a very major way, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, well, congrats too on the 10th back to school, you know, event that just happened. What, a couple weeks ago?
Right,
basically.
Right.
So,
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, that's incredible, and the fact that I read somewhere you said that education plus activation equals liberation. What drew you into education? You know, what about education did you see as the solution?
Yeah. I think education was the opportunity to work with young people before they got caught up in whatever it could be, the things that they could get caught up in. And I never in my life growing up thought I'd be an educator. I never did. But I also began to understand what education meant to me and what it did for me in my life, and thought that was the best way to serve or what God's purpose was for me at that time. And man, I went into it head first. You know, I didn't major in education in college. I didn't do anything as far as education, but I had the passion and heart to go in and you know, be the best teacher in front of my students that I could be. And I don't know if I was that good of a teacher. I really don't know how good of a teacher I was when it came to, you know, the X's and O's of teaching, but I had a good support system around me. What was cool is that my wife and I both went into education at the same time. So she was a first-year teacher when I was a first-year teacher.
That's cool.
Yeah, it is. And she actually was teaching at our high school. We went to Skyline High School, so she was teaching there. And so we were able to, you know, have that experience with one another, which was special for us too. But I believed in education. I still do to this day. And I think that for me, it was just a calling. I think all the things that have happened in this journey for me has been divine. And that was just what, you know, that was the shift that God put on my life in that moment, to go into the classroom and to work with IU.
It's amazing. Yeah. I mean, I think about how it probably has, over 10 years, snowballed into a bigger and bigger thing over time. I remember when you gave your Texas talk at Wax Base, you talked about the YMCA building, and how that was something you looked at growing up, and then For Oak Cliff was able to acquire that and bring that online for the community again. Do you have some stories about things that, you know, over the 10-year period that are sort of like that you know you've been able to kind of grow the movement in the super block?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's every day is something within these past 10 years. For Oak Cliff to, you know, where we are now, this is my wildest dream to be in this space. You know, the organization started as an event. It was a back to school festival to get school supplies for my students, my students that I would have the next school year. And, you know, I think that we outdid ourselves in that first year with thousands of people showing up in that first year at the festival at Glendale Park. And I remember my friend Nahum coming to me and saying, "Man, this is huge." He was like, "You got to start a nonprofit." And I didn't even know what a nonprofit was. You know, I'm a first-year teacher. I'm just trying to, you know, take all this in. You know, I'm sensory overload already with all this going on, that we pulled that off that day. And and it never, I never forgot him telling me that, or speaking that into me. It was really important, because I think words mean a lot, and words are powerful. And he spoke that into our community. And I mean, you know, after that, it was still, I didn't think about it as a organization per se.
Yeah.
I just was like, man, can we do this again next summer? That was where my head was, is like, can we do this again? And then, you know, we did it again. And then was able to transition into starting to build it out to be an organization, because again, you know, another 1,000+ people show up. And I also knew what was going on in my neighborhood. I knew the data. I knew the outcomes of things. And I also was aware that a festival, a one-time event, wasn't going to change those things. It could bring light to it. It could be a joyful day. But when we think about the mission at Fort Oak Cliff, which is to liberate Oak Cliff from systemic oppression, we had to be strategic about how we were going to do that. And I really, after that second year, I really dove into it and really started trying to figure it out. And what were the things that we could do? What were the data points that could be grown? And from there, man, you know, it all started to kind of fall in line. And look up, you know, it's 10 years later, a new building, a pandemic, 2 kids, you know,
a lot going on.
An actual team of people, you know,
some amazing partnerships happening too.
Amazing partnerships for sure. And you know, I think Fort Oak Cliff is one of those things. If you took Fort Oak Cliff away today, like if we were removed, I think what the inspiration that people have gotten from us is gonna live on. And I think that I don't know what is gonna come from the individuals who've experienced Fort Oak Cliff. So 10 years, man, it's been a journey.
I bet you've had a lot of things that you had to learn along the way, just kind of building an airplane while you're flying it, sort of thing.
Yeah, it's been turbulent.
Yeah.
I'll say that. You know, I don't. And again, I went into this as just went in head first with the work, but I'm grateful for the individuals who, you know, supported the vision. You know, I think about Xavier Henderson, Crystal Hills, Jennifer Hills, Unisha Wells, you know, these individuals, Keita Hall, like these individuals who were on the front end of all of this and believing in it before it was what it is today. And not to discredit or discount anyone that's here now, because they all amazing, and some of them are still around to this day. But I just think about, you know, those first, you know, 2-3 years, and really being in a space of like not knowing, you know, like I really
you're
didn't.
In the startup mode where you're like, this is what's gonna happen here.
I would say, you know, shoot, I'm not gonna say we not in startup mode still.
Yeah, that's true.
know?
That's true. Yeah, you're still building, and you're just having to figure this out and gain support, and
man. And in that time period, you know, it's
kind of doesn't stop.
No, it doesn't. I mean, and then to even have, you know, a shift of, you know, the first back to school festival was August 2015, and then we had a drive-through back to school festival August 2020. You know, like because the world shut down, and just thinking about that, it's like, man, we had to be innovative and adapt in that space. But you know, all in all, man, when I reflect on it, I'm the word that comes to mind is gratitude. I'm grateful for being able to be in the space that I've been in and have the experiences that I've had, and be able to serve the thousands of people that we have in this past 10 years. But what I'm hopeful for is looking ahead to the next 10 and knowing that, you know, all the things that we learned in the past 10, and then thinking about how we build on those things for the next 10, that gives me a lot of hope.
When you were talking about this earlier, just diving into the data about your neighborhood, and even the mission of like fighting against the systemic oppression. Can you kind of share more of what that is for audience, and just like what that is in Oak Cliff even, that you guys are fighting against and what you've had to?
You just saying systemic oppression in general in Oak Cliff and how it affects. Yeah, man. I mean, you know, when you, I mean, it's deep, you know, it's Dallas has a crazy history when you really look into it, and when you start to unpack things, you know,
it can be ugly.
It is ugly for sure. You know, when we look at things like redlining,
Yep.
and how that played into
breaking up tents.
I mean, just
yeah.
breaking up communities, but also the wealth that was lost from being able to own real estate or sell it as well, because you know, black people weren't able to sell houses in certain areas, and you know, black people were intimidated and forced to move out of homes and sell them for way less than what they were valued at. And I think of those things in the, you know, a way that has, and that's not as modern as like present day, but you know, we go back before that, like, you know, Dallas got some pretty big plantations here.
Yeah.
You know, the Cotton Bowl is here, you know, and slavery was a real industry that my people had to live through. And I think I bring that all up because it's compounded on top of that. And I think that even when you look at the amount of time that black people have been out of slavery compared to the time we were in it, I mean, we barely have made up any of that time. You know, 300 plus years and only 100, you know, and some out. That part is like, it's really heartbreaking to think about, and all the time to try to make up. And that's slavery, and then you go into Jim Crow era, then you go into, you know, Reconstruction and all the opportunities that we didn't have as a people. And Dallas, probably more than any other city in the United States, was very strategic in the racism and oppression that took place here. It did it with a lens of business in mind. And I think that that's something that we've experienced, and we still have experiences right now today when I think of our community. So in the ways that has played out now is like, you know, we still don't have a grocery store, or we don't have enough quality grocery stores within our community. You know, the most incarcerated zip code in the state of Texas, and then even when you think about the mass incarceration of the 90s, and then, you know, the crack epidemic and all those things, and the resources that were not given, man, it's layered and compounded. But I do know that in spite of all that, you know, it's some resilient people, man, because you know, my granny grew up in 10th Street. My great grandmother, you know, lived in 10th Street. My great aunt is over there right now. And, you know, I appreciate them so much of giving me my history, and also letting me know that people sacrifice for me and my peers to have the opportunities that we have. And right now, when I talk about liberation in our mission statement, you know, as liberation at its definition, essentially is freedom. And you know, it's so many things that are holding people back and holding them down. And I think that for us, we don't say that we are going to free anybody. You know, like we aim to liberate Oak Cliff from systemic oppression. Like that's where we putting our efforts at. Like that's our aim. And in order to do that, I think the most important thing is to give a person the freedom to think, and have the you know, to be able to have a free mind to know that they can be whoever they put whoever their dreams are, whoever they've dreamed to be, or whoever people dream for them to be. But yeah, man, that's a lot to talk about.
No, yeah. Well, I'm thank you for being open to it. I think the first time and probably both of us, like, kind of read about some of this was Jim Schutz's book. And just the idea of, like, Dallas, one of the things you said earlier was, like, being forced to sell their homes at a lower price, or, like, and that was like, oh, there's actually bombs going off in people's front yards, and in Dallas, and as intimidation. And Dallas doesn't talk about this. Dallas is a very you even said like business, it's been done in that way. I'm like, oh, there's like a polished racism that's happened in some way that is, and I say polished in the worst of terms because it's almost hidden. And so I think it's just so complex. There's a lot to talk about there. I mean, I even think about, we were talking to some developers who explained to me for the first time the idea of, and this might only, people in Dallas will be the ones who understand this, but like Hampton Road turning into Mockingbird, or some of these roads changing. Clarendon to, I forget exactly, but they would change the names of the streets as soon as you hit the Trinity River, and they did not want to be associated with what was happening south of Dallas. And it's the same road. But that was mind-blowing to me, like starting to learn about some of these things. You're like, man, this was designed, or like
it was intentional. It obviously wasn't like a byproduct of something.
It's like, I'm not gonna have the same address on Mockingbird as like somewhere in South Dallas. You're like, man, this was intentional or designed in some ways, unfortunately.
Indeed. I mean, one thing that y'all know who the founders of Oak Cliff are?
It was Marsalis and who's the second? Armstrong.
Armstrong Marsalis, tell us.
And the connection, the crazy connection that I'm thinking of when you say those two names are Highland Park and Oak Cliff.
Like
it's
they designed those.
They came here together to like create a new, lay out a new town, new city, and one of them was like, I'm going to Highland. I'm going to go to this area. You stay here, and one of them went and did Highland Park. I don't know. That's what comes to mind when you.
We don't know much, but
what their industry was, what their business was.
Tell us.
Grocers.
Grocery? They were
like,
grocers?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. That was what that's what they did, grocery stores.
Really?
Yeah. And to think now Oak Cliff is a food desert. And that parts of Oak Cliff is a food desert, and to think that was their thing. I mean,
that's dark. It's
we're learning more. I think that's another part of this this like show is like learning more of the history of this place. We're wanting to know more and more and uncover some of this stuff. And so that's wild. Well, I know transitioning even to Oak Cliff and a concept that like we're super drawn to is the super block, and you explained this a lot. I know you talked about this in your talk earlier as well, but can you explain what a super block is, what the super block is? Because we're like, it seems like it's for your neighbors, and it's in this like focused area. We'd love to share more about that and hear more about that.
Yeah, the super block is a geographical area that we focus our efforts in. Is majority the 75216 zip code that we serve. And the name itself is just cool, super block.
It is. It's fun to say.
Yeah, it is. And it's another one of those things that's just like, it catch on, and like people being able to say I'm from the super block, and people know what that is. But we focused majority of our efforts in that area because we have to be intentional about it. And I understand too that we can't get so spread out that we're not making an impact. And I can't, I think a lot of times too that people think things can be duplicated or replicated in other areas, and that's not a good thing to do, because every community and every neighborhood is different. And I'm never going to prescribe anything to a community that I'm not familiar with. And even within the super block, I'm still getting my education because I don't know every single person, every single street. But I think that's where we have the most knowledge of being able to know the people and the needs there. But the super block, a beautiful place. We got, I think, within the community, we got some of the best parks that you could go to and growing. I think we got some of the best food in the city of Dallas.
Like what?
Like what food?
There we go. Yeah, tell us. Give us your list.
I mean, what you like?
Oh, man. Barbecue.
You like barbecue? We got Records. You ever been to Records?
No.
TDs?
Dude. I'm putting it on.
Sweet.
I'm putting it on my list.
Smoky Joe's.
No.
Smoky Joe's. Sweet Georgia Brown.
Sweet Georgia Brown.
I've been to
Yeah.
Sweet Georgia Brown. That
Sweet,
place is
Sweet Georgia Brown gonna give you everything
That is
that
a
you want.
spot right there.
So you like barbecue, you got, you take your pick. Them the ones that come top of mind, or you could just pull up in a parking lot if somebody got a grill out and just, go get you something
I
real
love
quick.
it. I love it. It's amazing.
I haven't had meat in some time. I'm pescatarian.
Okay.
So, catfish is one of my favorite.
Ooh, yeah.
Where's the spots to check out?
I'm from Glendale, man. So I'd be remiss not to say Catfish Floyd's first, which is in Glendale Shopping Center. Ronnie's Catfish, I love Ronnie's in Singing Hills. That's another amazing catfish place. What
What
else?
I'm hearing is we need to go get some catfish.
Hey,
Yeah, some
food. Let's
Ronnie's.
get some
Sounds
food
so
down there.
good.
Yeah, go do that. Those, catfish in that way. And then, and even when I think about, man, we got everything. Even vegan spots, we got
Yeah.
Recipe Oak Cliff, that's in the Super Block. They ain't in the Super Block, but they Oak Cliff adjacent. And Hope Boys, which is in the parking lot out here.
That's
I
right.
know.
They're right here.
Yeah, so not for Oak Cliff, I'm sorry. The Super Block got a lot of culture, man.
That's
2
awesome.
state
Mhm.
championships.
I know.
And
man.
football.
I know.
A couple
It's a
NBA
special place.
champions came
Yeah.
out of there. Dennis Rodman from the Super Block.
Who was the first one?
Dennis
Dennis
Rodman.
Rodman.
Well, Dennis Rodman for sure.
Yeah.
You said a couple NBA champions.
Dennis Rodman. He got what?
Yeah.
How many rings he got? 4 or 5? I don't know.
Yeah.
Fact check
Yeah.
me on that, but I know he got.
We're trying to get
multiple.
Dennis Rodman on the show.
Yeah, that
at
was
some
the
point.
first episode. We're like, who from Oak Cliff do we want to
Yeah.
get someday? I was like,
That'd be a dream.
Dennis Rodman? I don't know.
Dennis Rodman
that'd be
would
a
be cool.
wild
That would be
episode.
fun.
That would be.
He's got some fun stories, I bet.
Mhm.
Well, I love your commitment to a place. I think that's something that, we admire. I think the idea that you don't have to go replicate something like you said in every city in the nation. You can focus on your backyard, where you grew up. Maybe it's not even where you grew up, but it's what you want to call home.
Mhm.
And it's a lifelong commitment.
Mhm.
And I think you start to really learn the intricacies, the nuances of a place when you stay there.
Mhm.
We were talking about this earlier too.
Yeah.
It was just like the idea of like being committed to a place, into your neighbors, and really getting your roots deep into that area. I think it only gets sweeter over time, is what I've told people at Waxbase or Elmwood or our neighborhood or wherever. It's just like the more and more you put towards that area, I do think it only gets better. And so, yeah, have you found that in the Super Block, as like you've obviously grown up there, but like lived there, but this idea of like place and sticking to place,
Mhm.
is that only grown?
For sure, and also I just want to give the credit to where it's due. The proof of concept for our movement at 4 Oak Cliff was the Harlem Children's Zone by Geoffrey Canada in New York City. I was introduced to his work while I was in grad school at SMU, and I was blown away at how he was hyper-focused to a specific area in Central Harlem. And fast forward to today, we're doing our strategic plan right now with the Harlem Children's Zone.
Oh, wow.
Cool.
Geoffrey Canada has chosen 4 Oak Cliff as an organization to be a part of an institute that he started called the William Julius Wilson Institute. And it's for organizations that are in the field of place. So it's the place-based work. And we go to a conference every year called The Power of Place. And man, it's been some of the most inspiring and encouraging and informative and educational moments that I've had in this work. And to be able to sit with a Geoffrey Canada and soak up so much information. If people aren't familiar with who he is, y'all should definitely look him up. But sit with him and learn from him has been it's been a blessing for myself and for the community, and the technical assistance that they've been able to provide to 4 Oak Cliff and other organizations across the country. And I'm really grateful. And I just, I think that the proximity, we talked about that before. and having that proximity to a place, it matters because of the intel that you're able to acquire, and then also the passion in which you serve. It's different. It just hit different when you close to it, and you do it with a different type of courage as well.
Yeah, I think when you're there day in and day out, people start to realize, oh, this guy's not like, he's not just coming in and then he's going to be gone. You know, this person's made a commitment, and that subconsciously, I think, does a lot for people when they start to realize, like, you know, we're not going anywhere. This is it.
Yeah,
this is the
here,
whole thing.
here.
There's no aspirations to change the world. It's like, let's focus on these 3 streets right here. You know, I think that's pretty cool.
I agree with you.
Congrats too on the institute. That sounds
Thank
like,
you.
when will that, is that something that will hopefully grow into a bigger movement, or what's the vision for the institute?
I mean, the institute is this is our 3rd year participating in the institute.
Okay, cool.
So every summer, we go to Cambridge with other place-based organizations from across the country that Geoffrey Canada and his team handpicked to be there, and we go in and we learn for 3 days. We at Harvard.
Casual. Oak Cliff to Harvard. What's going on there?
Yeah, for real. Shout out to Miss Mason, Sharifa Mason. She had a whole program called From Oak Cliff to Harvard. And
Oh, really?
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Cool.
we really did that.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, to be, on the campus of Harvard, and I don't know, man. To me, I found myself in those moments. Like this past summer, I'm having a one-on-one breakfast with Mr. Geoffrey Canada himself, and just talking to him about my community and about his life, and he asked me questions about my life, and it's like I built a bond with him. And just to give one of the antidote of how big Geoffrey Canada is to just the movement as a whole. The federal government every year through the Department of Education puts out the Promised Neighborhood Grant, and that is a grant that President Obama signed into legislation or law. And organizations who get that federal grant receive between like $20 and $40 million. So the Promised Neighborhood Grant is based off of Geoffrey Canada's work. You can go see the video where President Obama is talking about Geoffrey Canada before he wins the election and say, like, this is what I want neighborhoods across the country to be like. And to be able to be in a space with someone like that, learn how to get that grant, which is the aspirational for Oak Cliff, is to be able to go after the Promised Neighborhood Grant from the Department of Education, to sustain our work as well. I mean, it's surreal to me. Like, I don't know.
How can you not be thankful?
And just being in that space, like, man, I never thought that would be the life for myself. And I am thankful, and I'm also I'm inspired to come back home and do so much more. So yeah, the institute, man, Geoffrey Canada was retired.
Was he really? Okay.
Yeah, and he came out of retirement and said that he wants to impact 1 million kids.
Oh, wow.
Him and the current CEO at the Harlem Children's Zone, and they started the institute and the William Julius Wilson Institute. We're part of it. It's in Dallas. Us and Bachman Lake together are both part of the institute, and being able to learn. We got our strategic planning process. They brought in Bridgespan to help us with our strategic plan. And if you all know what Bridgespan does, it's an amazing entity to do those, but it's also a high dollar amount. And this is all in con for us to help us be able to really serve the people in the most strategic way that we possibly can. So I'm grateful, man. That's what I really appreciate, someone like that to make space. I just wanted to uplift, our family out there in New York as well. And Geoffrey Canada, man, I'm just really thankful for him as a person.
It's awesome.
Man, it sounds like he's I need to get more familiar with his work, but I love the way, Taylor, you're like always deflecting the attention to every other person right now except taking any credit. And you worked so hard for 10 years. It's not like it was an easy road. Like you said, there was some turbulence, so respect for that. But
I appreciate that.
Yeah, man, it's humble. That's That's some of our favorites is like people who are doing things excellently, but they don't like believe their own press and hype sometimes and think they're the best. You're just like, man,
It's the best combo.
Yeah, it's awesome. What thinking about Fort Oak Cliff and even reminiscing of those 10 years, what are like some moments, some highlights that have happened, or maybe even just like, man, this is a crazy story that happened.
A crazy story?
Yeah,
I got a lot of those.
We're open.
I mean, Mark Zuckerberg helping us start a community garden. That's kind of crazy.
That's a little crazy.
Casual again.
Yeah, that really happened. I mean, you know, getting a 10-acre property, a 20,000 square foot building with a pool and all that on it, that's kind of crazy. That also I can see my childhood home across the creek from, like, that blows my mind. I think, man, J. Cole, you know, doing a freestyle saying, shout out Oak Cliff, I'm about to fly to Dallas. He does, and then comes to the Fort Oak Cliff Back to School Festival.
That was wild. Yeah,
man.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That, I mean, you know, it's a lot, man. You know, South Oak Cliff winning back-to-back state championships.
Yeah.
The parade starting at Fort Oak Cliff, like the parade starts there, ends at the school. I don't know, man. It's a lot that has happened that I just think like, man. And I'll just even think about it starting from a 250 square foot office space in Glendale Shopping Center.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all that just to me blows my mind that that we've been able to have these experiences and stay the course. You know, that part to me is like, you know, I mean, even the capital campaign to get our space, like to face, you know, a multi-million-dollar campaign to buy this building and then execute it in the timely fashion that it was supposed to be. You know, shout out to Xavier Henderson, our chief development officer, and our board for all that they did. But man, it's been a lot, I think. But I would also say, man, you know, my faith, and I think our faith as a team as a whole, I know that the work that we do is divine, and I know that that this is God's assignment. So, you know, anything is possible. You know, they say a faith of a mustard seed can move a mountain, and I think I've seen some mountains move. And that's not just my faith; that's the collective faith of the people that's in our community. You know, even South Oak Cliff getting a brand new high school, like nobody thought that was gonna happen, and the youth spoke up. And now they got that brand new multi-million-dollar school. And then what we knew is you give us the facilities and the resources and watch what happens. Now South Oak Cliff has the highest enrollment probably in the school's history, 2 state championships later. And the school also got a B rating, which is kind of unheard of for schools within the type of community that we serve. You know, I was looking at one of the schools, they'll be moving into a new facility as well. And I looked at the community index indicator that exists on the school, and out of 100, the school the neighborhood is a 2. But when I looked at their 3rd grade reading scores and saw in the past 10 years that they've grown by like 22% in the midst of all of these things, I'm just like, man, you know, it's some miraculous things happening in the super block.
It's working. What you're doing is working.
I mean, it ain't all of us, man. I mean, we are part of it, you know. But I think more than anything, we kind of just like, we supporting it all, you know. But I think
you're committed to it, and you're like, hey, I'm gonna be here, and it's part of that again. For
if anything, we're here to tell the story, man.
Yeah, man.
We're part of the story, and we're here to tell the story.
It sounds like some wild things too with Zuckerberg.
Zuckerberg in a community garden sounds like that'd be
a
strange,
Zuckerberg.
cool experience. Well, Taylor, when you think, I mean, obviously Oak Cliff is home to you, but when you think about Oak Cliff, I'd be remiss to not ask what makes Oak Cliff special.
The people. I think the people make the community special. I think the variation of individuals. It's all kinds of people in Oak Cliff, all kinds of special people, and all types of flavors of life in Oak Cliff. And I think that I think the sense of pride that we have as a people too makes Oak Cliff special. You know, if you meet someone that's from Oak Cliff, you know, you'll lead that conversation and you'll know it. It's not gonna be one of those things where you'll be like, where was he from again, or where was she from?
So
you gonna lead there knowing where this person was from, because we really care about it. You know, it means a lot, and I don't know where that came from or why that is, but
it's a pride thing, man. I don't know. Yeah, I agree, because we have friends out in California and they don't know us from Dallas, they know us from Oak Cliff, and you're like, it just is. Yeah, I agree. There's a pride about the neighborhood that you know, deep down inside it's special. Yeah, and the people here are special.
Yeah, man. I think it's one of the best places in the world to me. You know, and I might be extremely biased, but
I think we all are. I mean, it's starting an Oak Cliff podcast.
Yeah, you know, and I think, man, my unique Oak Cliff experience, it's been a special one. You know, I'm 35 years old. I'll be 36 in December.
Same, except September.
Okay.
We're same age.
All right. Yeah. So for me, you know, thinking about, I think we kind of a special generation because of all the things that we've had the opportunity to experience in life. You know, we got to grow up outside and have games. And have the internet.
Yes.
And have some of the best era of cartoons.
Oh man,
music and so movies. Good. You know,
we're so lucky. We're so thankful.
I am, and I've been talking to, you know, people about it. Man, 1995. Just go look at everything that happened in 1995. Dude. Do yourself a service and look at that year. And I remember being a young person in Dallas and Cowboys winning the Super Bowl that year. Friday coming out, This Is How We Do It coming out, like all of these things. And I'm like, I mean, if you go look at all the movies that came out in 95, and I think that was, you know, Windows 95 came out.
I was going to say, you're like, Cowboys, like Windows 95, Windows 95, that was wild.
Yeah, man. Like it was hilarious. 1995 for me, man, was a year that I was able to really absorb culture. Yeah. I think at its peak. Potentially, maybe, I don't know for me, but it was an amazing year in life. And I, you know, for me, I think that has shaped how I view the world to this day, because I was at the movie theater in Oak Cliff when the movie Friday premiered. Like I was there. My mom did security at the theater, and she'd take me to work with her. You
were at the premiere.
I was at the premiere of the movie, and man, I just remember like,
this is it.
Yeah, this is it. I was like, and I didn't know how fresh and new this stuff was, you know, because I'm a kid. I'm thinking like, people been experiencing this, but to look back on it now, it's like, oh, that was the first time that this was happening.
Yeah,
I mean, it's special, man. And I think about all those Oak Cliff moments that I've been able to see in my lifetime, and how cool it was going to the Carter Kimball game at Texas Stadium at that year. You know, like it was just a lot, man, and that was just a cool time to be alive.
Awesome.
Some good stuff.
Yeah.
I think I was 2 in 1995, so I missed out on a lot of that.
Any of that.
Yeah. 99 was really when.
Yeah, 99. Yeah, Y2K for him. Y2K for him.
Yeah,
it didn't hit like 95. That's right. 99 was cool though.
Yeah, you know? See that's how it is. You don't know it's cool until it's gone.
Backstreets and all them going crazy.
Yeah, a little bit of that. Man.
So yeah, I do feel like we were lucky a little bit, just like getting the outdoor, like analog reel kind of thing, and then the internet happening during that time, and not growing up with internet the entire time.
Right.
Like I don't know.
You had to make time for the internet.
Yeah,
like it was
just
a
run
real
outside
thing.
and go play with people.
Yeah,
like,
ride your bikes. And I think now that, you know, we're coming to age of leadership within, you know, our respective worlds and fields. I think that those experiences are gonna make an impact on people for real, because that window of life, you know, like the experiences that we were able to have, it's not the same as those who came before us.
Taylor, we're sounding old.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I work with young people, and
they don't know.
Well, you said we sounding. They
confirm that, huh?
Yeah, they confirm it. I remember a couple,
like, no internet. What are you talking about? You're like,
a couple weeks ago, a couple months, I was just walking to the store, and a young guy just came up to me and was like, "Hey, Unc, you got $1?" And I said, I looked at him, and I was like, Unc,
stop.
what happened to bro?
Yeah. I went from bro to Unc. Yeah,
That's how you know.
And I receive it, man, and then I take full responsibility
that's great,
with
man.
the rights that come
Yes,
with
yes.
being that person
Yeah.
because yeah, man, it's cool. You know, I think that we got some wisdom to
For sure.
spread, and
Yeah.
and I hope and pray that we get many more years.
Yeah.
We the middle child right now.
That's it. Man, well, I'm
love it.
thankful for all the work you're doing at 4 Oak Cliff, man, and just getting to be in Oak Cliff together. I think we're excited to continue seeing what you're doing. Thanks for being on the show.
My pleasure,
Yeah.
man. Thank y'all for having me, and thank y'all for doing the work to uplift and acknowledge Oak Cliff.
Yeah, man. Of course.
Well, thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Hidden City Podcast. We hope that you learned something new today on the show. Be sure to subscribe or follow the show on any of the podcasting platforms that you listen on or on YouTube. We invite you to share the show with a friend if you enjoyed it, and we'll see you at the next one.